You are listening to the Park Flyer Podcast, where we discuss our RC adventures.
Welcome to the Park Flyer Podcast, where we discuss the ups and downs of the new RC Flyer. Join your hosts, Michael and Jay, as they take flight at the park. Now on with the show.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Park Flyer Podcast. I'm Michael here in Arizona. With me always, my good friends.
Jay from the hills of Texas.
And AK Mike in Texas, in Arizona. Still.
That's right, still. So
that's right.
Yeah, our last episode we said that Mike was here and participating in the shenanigans here in Arizona. And today's another day. We kind of talked about his fundraiser and putting it together and painting and. Now we actually got to go fly it and do some other flying. So,
and non-hurricane winds, right?
Non-hurricane winds, yeah.
Right. No typhoons or what are they called out there? They're not monsoons. They're called
monsoons.
Yeah, it's a monsoon. It's a monsoon, not a typhoon or a hurricane.
No, a monsoon here.
We get
in Arizona.
hurricanes in Dallas,
right? We get monsoons here, but what you're probably thinking of is the haboob.
Haboob.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yes.
Because everybody thinks about that, and they're like,
Snake.
"What is that thing you have there?"
The dust devils.
It is a big dust. Well, it's more like a wall of dust.
Wall of dust.
Well, that's what a haboob is, right? But
Yeah,
I was just talking about you get the dust devils here.
We do. We get dust devils. We actually have a whistle.
We had one. We had one hit us when we were flying.
That's right. We did.
That was yesterday, but
yeah, we had. We were sitting there, fat, dumb, and happy, and all of a sudden,
Mike yells out, "Dust devil!" And I'm like, "What happened?"
Well, so the way that the club is kind of set up is that it's got tables, and we're always under the closest table to the Armada kind of thing, where all the kitchen and stuff. That's what we call it, a kitchen, but it's where all the battery storage stuff is for our solar. Well, then there's it kind of goes down, and there's one at the very end. Well, the guy at the very end got, he had what's that airplane you have? The Star Acro Duster.
Acro Duster?
Acromaster.
Acromaster.
Yeah,
yes.
So he has like a big Acromaster. It's the biplane. And as he takes the top wing off, he sets it on the table just in time for this dust devil to come whipping through there. Pick up his top wing and
there goes and flies up into the sky.
Yeah, so all of a sudden you hear this, hey, dust devil, and then everybody like grabs their airplanes. And we were kind of halfway out on the flight line, so we were like hugging everything. And then you hear this quang, crang, crang, and I look around, and sure enough, the guy on the very end, gets his, you hear this, string of obscenities, and he picks his wing up, and he looks at it. Well, he gets, frustrated, puts everything in the car. And hangs out. I think he went and got something. He came back or whatever. Anyway, now that it's kind of cooler, we were there all day, so now it's in the afternoon, a little bit later. He gets all his stuff back out, puts that wing on top of it. 2 seconds after he does that, guess what came through? Dust devil! Picked up his wing, chunked it right out into the gravel.
Now, when the dust devil came through, it hit the back of my legs like sandpaper, and I was like, "Ow, ow!" But then I felt my legs, and they were really
like a
smooth.
Sand blaster, right?
So it was good.
Blaster.
It's like my legs are smooth, like a swimmer's legs now.
That's right.
So
he didn't have to
no,
shave.
Didn't have to shave. I don't anyway, but I didn't have to.
Didn't Spencer have the same problem? He lost an F-16.
He lost an F-16 out of the back of his trailer.
No.
Yeah, that's F-16 I was flying.
Oh.
Yeah, it was sitting in the back on the stand, fat, dumb, and happy, doing its own thing. And Spencer left the side door of his trailer open. And one of those dust devils came through and went right through the side door of his trailer, into the trailer, picked up that F-16, and threw it right out the back of his trailer.
Dang.
I felt terrible.
That devil.
I know, right? And here's the worst part. He had just fixed it.
Right.
Because it had fallen off while he forgot to strap it down in the trailer. It had fallen off and hit his big airplane. It busted the rudder off of it. Busted the whole horizontal stab. So he got a new one, and he borrowed all my stickers from my kit, put it all together, polished it, sanded it, and that thing, it was all ready to fly, pushed it right out. So, but that's been a while, and now he's working on his L-39.
Mm-hmm.
But, so anyway, we got to maiden the fundraiser, and it was a little zippy.
Exciting.
It was exciting.
Yeah.
I think we told you about the maiden already, right? We
Yeah.
had the wrong control. Did I tell you we had the wrong control?
Wait. Tell the story.
Yes.
Tell the story.
About
What happened today? And come on, that's what we're here for, right?
the story about today.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So well.
So wait. So you're at because today was like Tuesday for flying or for with your
Right,
club,
yes,
right? So
today
you're
is
flying with the
Tuesday.
guys.
We did fly with the guys.
Okay, so you're at the club with the regular guys and you're flying. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah,
at the park,
yeah.
gotcha.
So officially, this isn't this podcast is coming out, but officially today is our birthdays.
Right.
So we get there and I tried to fly it and broke the prop.
Yeah.
Broke the prop, and so first flight out, right?
Yeah, so we, we had it out there. Everybody was oogling it, ooh ah.
When I landed or something.
And we had actually flown it 4 or 5 times yesterday, and it successfully, by the way. It flies really great. Flew it on a couple of 3-cells. It flies really fast. I finished up the day on a 4-cell, tossed it. That thing was ripping at about half throttle. So full throttle at a 3-cell was half throttle on a 4-cell. And I was a little nervous about just going to full throttle because this thing was really moving. No, torque wasn't a problem once you get it flying.
It's just moving.
It's just covering a lot of real estate for the little park that we're in. I mean, you're talking about 100-mile-an-hour airplane.
I don't think he'd keep up with his L-39, but he could give it a run for its money.
Yeah, it probably would give the L-39 a run for its money. But so then today we got up early. He's all excited. We're going to go out there and fly it again. And he's, we've been buddy boxing, and so he's ready to do it on his own. Hey, I want to do all this stuff, and I'm like, yeah, sure. So we go out there, and come to find out, Tom, one of the guys out there, he had a foam airplane that he built, and he wanted me to maiden it, so I did. Got it all set up. It actually flew really, really well. Actually, I think it flew better than his other.
Well, at one point I broke the prop. I don't remember how I did it, but I broke the prop. This is the first prop, the very first prop.
That was,
and then we stopped because I flew the Mangler after that because there was nothing else for me to fly.
Right. So we flew Tom's, and then Mike said, I want to fly mine. So he and I walked back out right into the middle of the field. I was going to launch it for him, and basically I went to go launch it. No,
I don't remember why it crashed.
So
I crashed
so
it,
the first
on the landing or something and broke a prop. Something like that. I landed it badly.
It never flew.
So it was just I just didn't take it off right.
Yeah, I know what it was. The battery.
The weak battery.
We put a battery in there that was a little old. And so I was holding it, and I said, okay, add some throttle. And I could feel, you can actually feel that this airplane wants to just leap out of your hands.
It does.
It's got that much power to it. And so basically I was holding it, and I said, a little more throttle. He added, yesterday we were using half throttle, a little less than half. So he went there, and I'm like, a little more throttle. And he's like, I'm at half throttle. And I said, okay. Well, it wasn't enough. So when I let go of it, it just went right into the ground, busted the prop.
Well, and then one other thing we figured out, but this is sort of later. So it busted the prop. So I flew the Mangler, which was fun.
So we put the battery in the Mangler and found out that his radio, because we're buddy boxing, he wanted me to buddy box on the Mangler. The Mangler didn't have something wasn't right.
This is set up right. Yeah.
So he's like, "Oh, this isn't set up because it's a dual aileron." So he went in his radio and tweaked a bunch of stuff and set it all up.
Yep.
So now we fly the Mangler. We only had one battery for it. And we decided, hey, we're going to go fly the big airplanes and stuff today.
We leave.
So we jumped in the truck. And then the way to the other field, I said, hey, Mike, you're here, I'm here. This is something that it's more important for you to feel comfortable leaving Phoenix with a handle on this fundraiser because he's still a little nervous. How about we go down to Duncan's RC here in Phoenix and buy some props? And so he's like, well, that's fine. And I go, I can fly the big airplanes anytime. And unless, we've already spent 2 days out there flying jets and doing a bunch of stuff at the club, why don't we focus today on just getting you up to speed on this fundraiser? And he's like, yeah, okay. So we drove down to Duncan's RC here in Phoenix. Great bunch of guys.
Yeah, like those guys.
We chit-chatted with them for a while, told them what we were doing. They love the podcast. They love it when we come in there, and we really appreciate them helping us out and supporting us. But, we grabbed a bunch of 1070 props and turned around and ran right back to the field. And so we swapped out the prop, and Mike was all excited. And he's like, oh, I'm going to do this again, and let's go. And he said, okay, I want to launch it. But I said, well, how about I launch it first? We'll put a fresh battery in, and we'll go from there. He said, yeah, no problem. Well, he had flown it 3 or 4 times yesterday. So I was standing there. I told him, I said, okay, give it a little more, power. And so
you suggested the rudder, which is a really good...
actually, yeah. So what we did is I said,
we learned after that first accident.
Right, we did learn. So what I said this time was, I want you to hold the airplane and see where the throttle setting is so that you know where it is. Then hand me the airplane, get ready to, take control, and wherever that throttle setting is, I'll let go of it and it'll go. That way you know how much throttle, because the batteries are going to vary, right?
But the problem here is that I got to hold the plane when I'm really launching it by myself. I got to hold the plane and do the control. So what did you suggest?
So I told him basically that we were going to practice using rudder. So he launched. You launched with your left hand.
Well, that's what I was planning to do.
Right.
I launched my wing with my left hand, which is a plane that I can't throw over my head. I have to launch it by hand. So I would just launch with my left hand, set the throttle to 3/4, and launch with my left hand, and I have my aileron elevator in my right hand, which is perfect.
Because it's an Elevon set.
Right, that's right.
But this one has a rudder, and so the torque needs to be counteracted by rudder. So now he's got to switch hands. So as he switches hands, I'm like, oh, you have to put the rudder in here. And he goes, okay. So I told him to put a little rudder, add a little throttle. I let go of the airplane. It did a complete rollover and hit the ground. And it busted the prop.
Yeah. But some other stuff, too.
No. That time it just busted the prop.
You're right. That's right. Because I pulled it out.
Right. He was kind of like, oh, man, I busted the prop. So I was like, all right, it's no problem. We walked over, changed out because we have a stack of props that we got from Duncan's. And we went back over and put the new prop on, got back over there, and I said, okay, well, this time, put a little more throttle in there. And he said, okay. So put a little more throttle. I launched it a little bit more upwards. Mike actually came in on the power, and the thing started to roll. Next thing we know, it did a complete roll on its back and pulled right into the ground again, this time at full throttle. And parts went everywhere. And Mike was frustrated. My gosh, he was upset. So it busted the nose cone. It busted the prop again. So this is the second prop. Busted the plate behind it. It broke the fuselage, but not terribly. It just cracked it. And then it ripped off one of the ailerons.
Right. And the rudder.
And the rudder kind of, broke the rudder. So needless to say, it was not in flyable condition, but it was repairable. And so Mike was really frustrated, to the point I would say a little bit on the angry side because he was mad at himself. So we were sitting down and we tried to, basically figure it out.
We're gluing it together and we're talking.
Yeah. And Mike says, this really irritates me that that I did this 2 times in a row because I flew it so well yesterday. And this is going to be, maybe this isn't the airplane for me because, something's not right. And I said, look, we want to get you back on the track, so let me launch it. You launch it. I'll fly it up to altitude, hand it back to you, get used to the airplane again, land it, and we'll start again. And he said, yeah, that's a good idea. So he launched it for me. I flew it around. I got it all trimmed up because the control surfaces had come off, and I needed to get retrimmed.
They get all changed out.
Right, and so I retrimmed everything, and I go, okay, when you're ready, I'm going to give you the airplane. He said, okay, I'm ready. I gave him the airplane. It was a mess. I gave it to him at a lower altitude with no power, just some power, but he was gliding like I was coming in, and it was only about, probably about 10 or 12 feet in the air because I was just coming between us, and he went to go add power. The airplane pitches up, rolls over, and hits the ground. And this time, I looked at him and I was like, I do not understand what is going on. So we scooped it up. He was a little upset because he's like, you know what? I just, maybe this airplane is too much. I'm just not able to fly it. We're walking back, and he looks at me and goes, holy crap. Did I fly the Mangler before we flew this again? And I go, yeah. He goes, my ailerons were reversed in my radio.
No way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. So because we didn't pre-flight it, we basically busted
no
2 props.
Way.
Yep.
Yeah.
Really?
That's something that I would normally do. You know that, Jay.
No
I would normally check
way.
on that, but I was just so excited and so upset from
Now,
the first.
I will
crash.
tell you, honestly, when we plug it in, my radio has control.
It did
and
work.
I always go up, down, left,
It
right, and everything checks.
Yeah.
And he goes, okay, let me see if I have it, and he'll do the up, down, la, la. And
We just didn't do that.
he just didn't do that.
Yeah.
Because mine was already set, and we had been flying it all day yesterday.
Yeah.
Oh,
So he
my goodness.
throttled it up to see if he had to throttle,
And
and I
sure
said,
enough.
yep, you do.
Yeah.
So he's like, okay, I have control. So he just did the, and you hear all that
No,
noise.
no, I didn't do that. I didn't do that because we didn't check the. I know.
Well, we didn't check, but you wanted to make sure you had control. So you went, you just move the control surface to see
Yeah,
if-
and just hear it.
yeah, just
you're
to
right,
hear
just
it,
hear it.
you
yeah.
know. So, yes. So needless to say, he walked back to the bench as I was putting the airplane back together. And, basically he looked and said, yes, you are correct. Basically the control surfaces or the ailerons were backwards in his radio. They were reversed. So he fixed it. We walked right back out there. And as soon as I tossed it in the air, he flew it like a champ. It was crazy.
No way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was brutal.
Wow.
Now, I have to tell you, Jay, that I am incredibly uber impressed with this
Airplane?
airplane. After
Really?
all of that, what do
Still
you think this airplane looks like?
The nose broken off. The
Nope.
No,
something
yeah,
stinked over.
Well, it has a couple paint chips out of it, and the nose cone was busted. That was it.
you really can't tell.
If I showed you right now what it looks like, you'd be like, whoa. Because it, with the exception of where there's a little
Some
wrinkly in
scuffing,
some scuffing and wrinkling in the foam, this thing took a
Couple of nose hits.
Yeah,
2 nose hits.
right on the nose, and it wrinkled a little bit, but nothing that caused it to fly out of sorts, wonky, none of that stuff.
Wow.
And the motor has, to take
2
3 or 4
direct
of those,
hits like that,
3
yeah.
actually, 3 direct
Yeah.
hits right on the nose. That thing has held up. It's a little piece of plastic in there, and it's great. I'm super, super impressed.
Wow.
But I have flown this thing a couple times now, and it is a good replacement for the Tough Wing. I think
Okay.
if the 3 of us had, one, and we're out at your place, ripping around out there, we would be giggling like school kids.
We would. It would be fun.
It would be fun.
So the takeaway I have for this is, one, always do your pre-flight checks. We just talked about that.
I know we did not too long. ago.
Anyway, always do your pre-flight checks, even if you're the trainee.
Yeah.
Make sure that the trainer gives you control, and you double check your flight control surfaces. Make sure they're all, because you never know when you did it on another race. The reason the first thing we told this to Barry, Barry goes, "Well, don't you have model saves you can have, Mike?"
Yeah,
Well,
model matching.
yeah, I do. But in this case, I'm the buddy box, so I didn't care to make model saves for the different things I was buddy boxing for. It makes sense. Well, but it does, because this happened,
Right.
and so
So wait a minute. So let me ask you a question,
Mhm.
AK Mike. So for your Free Sky radio, did you make individual models for this one, or do you just have one that says like trainer and that's what you're?
DX18 buddy. That's what it says. Because all I'm sending to him is throttle, rudder, elevator.
Right. So what I'm saying is you didn't set this model up in your radio, then buddy box it together. You just have
No.
a generic
yeah,
model set up.
yeah, which
And
is
then
the way you would do it.
Okay.
This is the way you would do it. But because the Mangler that we flew was a totally different configuration,
Right.
I changed it on my box, and I didn't change it back. If I'd pre-flighted, that would have been no issue. But I
Right,
didn't
right.
pre-flight. So
Well,
that's
no.
the
What
problem.
I was getting at more
We
so
can
is
talk
if
about
you
the
had
model
if you
saves.
had made a model for the
Yeah, I
Mangler
get
and
you,
you had
Jay.
made,
But
yeah, okay.
model
That's
saves-
all. That's all I
model
was just
saves
trying to
doesn't
confirm
change it
that there
because
was
I could
that
have
there
had the
was
wrong
not.
model
You just had
selected. I could have had any other thing, right? It's
Yeah,
just
yeah,
that
yeah.
it didn't do the pre-flight checks.
Gotcha.
Because those
Gotcha.
things.
No, I was just
maybe
trying to see
mitigate.
just how you had the radio
Yeah.
configured, for your normal setup.
Sure.
That's all. I
Well,
was
and
trying
that's
to
what
understand.
we'll do that tonight. We're going to do that tonight and fly it again tomorrow and
Okay.
make sure that works. So, but there's
Wild.
nothing I could have done differently. I mean, there's some things I could have done differently, and it would have mitigated those issues. But I think the lesson here is do your pre-flight checks. That's the lesson. That's what it is.
Well, you could have just flipped the thing around on the swivel, held the aileron upside down, and flown.
Well, if I was as good as Mike,
If he would have launched it upside down, it would have been perfect.
yeah, only for 2 more seconds until I try to do something with the ailerons again and zap, right?
Oh man.
Yeah. So,
wow. Well, I'm glad that your plane survived.
Yeah, me too.
You know, your birthday, because nothing sucks the worst than on maidens and you ruin the plane or you wreck it.
Yeah.
And believe me, I've done more than I wish to count. I have done that. So.
Yeah.
Wow.
So the second thing I learned, is that when you fly this plane, you got to put in a good amount of rudder. If you don't put the good amount of rudder in, it's gonna torque over on you. And even with aileron, flying with aileron, Mike and I talked a lot about this, and Mike has the dynamics. You can talk about that, but just doing it with the rudder made more sense, because what I had to do, basically I was doing a quick draw, right? My right hand, I left my right hand off the radio because that would be the tossing hand, even though Mike was tossing it. Right? I was just letting Mike toss it because I wanted to have a little distraction. We were sort of doing this in increments, right? Trying to learn how to control this plane on takeoff with as if I'm doing it myself, right? So we're simulating small bits of it as we go along. And he said, all right, so just give it not lots, but yeah, it was about half rudder, almost full rudder, and then give it throttle. Well, I can't hold the radio, toss it, and do that with my thumb. I can't do it that way. And then he said, well, just put your finger next to the stick. Don't put it on the stick. Put it next to the stick in the little groove where the stick travels. And then you can push the rudder over a little bit, and you can push the throttle up. And so I practiced that a little bit when it was on the ground, not doing anything, and then we did it for real. And I was surprised at how well that worked. I mean, I didn't know it was going to work. He obviously did, so it was just a matter of me executing on what he.
Is it me, or do you hear a little bit of angst in his voice for today? Is it? Do you hear that? He's a little anxiousness of like, this has been one of those days.
I empathize with the man, because he had this beautiful, gorgeous plane that you painted for him for his birthday.
He still does. It didn't get destroyed.
No, but I'm just trying to convey the feel. It's just like you gave me that beautiful jet behind me.
Right.
Put it together. It's easy peasy, easy to go together, but still, you help me put it together. You bring the beautiful gift, and then you're like, oh, go fly it. And even though I've flown before and I know what I'm doing, I'm so nervous. And the reason I'm nervous is because I don't want anything bad to happen while you're standing there. Right. Which, if I went and flew it myself, I probably would have no problems or issues whatsoever because the plane flies so well. Right. But because you're standing there and we're talking about things, and I'm just overly nervous because I don't want anything to happen to wreck it in a smoking hole, and I only flew for 30 seconds. Like, oh, sorry.
Hey, that was fun. 30 seconds.
That was a fun 30 seconds. Thanks for the gumball, and go walk off the field.
Right. So one of the things that I fly, we talked about this before, but I'm a thumb flyer, right? I fly with my two thumbs, and then my fingers exercise all the radios, and I don't have a neck strap. So dexterity wise, I'm not relying on the neck strap to hold my radio. I have to physically hold it. And Mike is a finger flyer. He's a pincher.
He's a pincher.
He flies with these two. So what was happening is that Mike was balancing the radio on his belly, basically, and trying to add throttle and rudder at the same time. And what happens is like, it's like trying to push a wet noodle around because it's on his,
Right.
So he's trying. We wanted to practice because he said, "Look, I'm going to be doing this and hand launching on my own. I would like to learn that while I'm here, while I have a buddy box. Because if something happens to it in this initial phase, I want you to be able to kind of save it." Which we figured out wasn't always the case because once or twice I tried to save it, it already was headed to the ground. There's nothing I could do.
Well, I would say that the 2 times you tried to save it was reverse ailerons. So there's no way you could have saved it. No way you could have saved it.
Well, it wasn't my ailerons weren't reversed.
No. But I had already got it in the attitude that there's no way you could have saved it. That's
true.
They're only 6 feet off the ground. It would have been Superman to really solve that.
Plus, this thing only has a very little throw because it's so fast. It's not a 3D flyer.
Right.
You have to have a loop on this thing is not a small loop. Yeah. You have to have some real estate to get around the bottom, and so the one time I actually did save it. Yeah. It kind of went between two trees, and I'm like, I got it, and kind of flew it down on the ground, and nothing really happened there. I think we broke the prop maybe, but the other time it was literally in a over rotating, and I grabbed it and actually leveled it,
before it hit. That's how he didn't kill the prop on that one.
It didn't break the prop, but I got it level, but there was no way I was going to be able to
slap right on the ground,
come out of the bottom of it. So, but anyway, you can see this dilemma where he's pushing on the radio and it's moving around. And I go, what are you doing? And so that's when he mentioned earlier about, I told him, I was like, look, you're going to have to do this. And I held my radio out and I pushed it up. He said, I can't do that. My hand won't work that way. And so I told him, just lay your thumb beside it and lay it on the whole thing.
Now I could actually grip the radio.
So you're holding the radio.
And then using my thumb to grip and control that rudder and throttle, because that's got to do that with the one thumb. So
I got to think about that for a second, because
grab your radio.
It's just one of those things that from launching the tough wing to a couple of the jets that I have, and I launch underhand. I guess I don't even think about how I hold the radio.
How do you hold it?
I just throttle it up and I hold the radio and I launch it, and then I.
So those though they're not torque. They don't have that torque.
Yeah,
component.
They're not torquing over.
And this is the problem: is that this pylon racer, is got the torque component that most planes don't have. Right. And I would do exactly what you're talking about. If I had a rudder plane that didn't torque over, I would put the throttle up, put my right hand on the sticks, toss that bad boy up with my left, and up it would go. And that's how I would fly it, because it doesn't torque over. But this is different because it's got this torque component that's new to me anyway, not new to Mike. And I don't know how many of the planes that you have that do that, but maybe you don't. But you know how to fly that. And we talked a little bit about how I learned to fly planes, and how you and I have had lots of conversations about how flying with the rudder only, and when you learn, when you use a rudder, rudder elevator plane, that you put the rudder on the left stick, that way you can properly learn how to fly with the rudder. And we talked a little bit about good progressions and possible ways of teaching that. That aside, maybe we'll talk about that some other time. That aside, I learned how to launch it with that, putting my finger next to the stick. It's a great idea, and it worked fantastically. In fact, of the last 2 or 3 that I did,
oh yeah, they were perfect.
The one of them I had the rudder cranked over, and I went and hit it, and it yawed instead of rolling. Basically, what ended up happening. And so it would take off, and it yawed over, and then I say, "Oh, okay, I just let go of now I can just let go of that stick altogether, because it's still got the right throttle. I just let go of it. The rudder centers, and now I have my right hand on the. By that time, I have my right hand on the
radio, right?
On the radio, and off it goes.
Cool. It was an interesting dynamic to the two of us, because my demeanor versus Mike's demeanor are totally different.
Yeah.
And Mike was incredibly frustrated, where I was kind of like, "What are you doing?"
Yeah.
And it was funny. He said something to me earlier today. He said, you are telling me to do certain things, expecting me to change my behavior, but this is my behavior, right? This is the way I already do things. You're thinking, well, you need to do it differently. But when I go back home, this is what you see. So I had to think about that and go, okay, well, how do I get him to do what he normally does and make it feel comfortable? And that's kind of when we went.
Well, so if it was uncomfortable, you said to me, "This is going to feel uncomfortable. This is what you need to do."
Right.
And I did it, and it worked.
Right.
And that was the whole rudder thing. And
but once it worked, all of a sudden it wasn't uncomfortable anymore because it worked.
Right.
Right.
But it had to work once.
It had to work. He had to see the airplane track out and just go straight out on a 45, no rolling, no turning, and then bring his hand up and put his pinchers on the right stick. And then it started flying. Then it didn't matter. But, a lot of times when you trim an airplane up and you get the airplane trimmed, like I was telling Mike, if the airplane is perfectly trimmed the way you want it, and you are flying it and you pitch up to a 45-degree upline and let go of the sticks, it's going to go to a 45. It's not going to roll. It's not going to pitch, any of that. It's going to roll. I mean, it's going to track on the 45 till it runs out of energy, and then it'll start sinking, or it'll go over and fly this little kind of parabolic pattern. And that's what I was trying to tell Mike. If this thing has the correct amount of rudder when it's launched, it will just track straight out on a 45. And it took about 3 or 4 launches, a couple of scary, moments and the craps, and then it happened. And when it happened, it was like this big relief. You could see him over there. He was like, "Huh," like this light bulb came on. And then he's like, "I'm going to come around and do that again." And that's when, it was like the heavens opened and just poured all this knowledge on him. So the good news is we got to talk a little bit about, once again, about the aerodynamics of flying. And I told him, I said, in the real airplane, when you get into this really slow flight and you have a really high deck angle on a real airplane, a lot of guys use the ailerons to try and control the way the airplane's rolling. And unfortunately, you can't do that. It creates drag and the wing will drop. But if you do it with the rudder, you can actually hold the airplane kind of straight.
It's kind of like 3D'ing in a way.
Yeah, almost.
Yeah.
I had a student not too long ago. His name's Randy, but he was really nervous about flying, and he didn't quite understand that too. So we actually went up in a 172. I told him, I said, okay, here's what I'm going to do. I grabbed the control yoke, and I didn't lock it, but I just held it in place. So I didn't put any aileron. Aileron was totally neutral. The elevator was totally neutral, and I said, I need you to do a 180-degree turn to the left. And he looked at me like, how am I supposed to do that? I said, with your feet. With your feet. He goes, really? And I go, step on the left rudder. So he steps on the left rudder, and, of course, the wing starts to dip. We start this left turn, and he starts, trying to correct with the ailerons, and I won't let him touch the yoke. I just hold it in place. And he's like, we're still turning. And I go, step on the right rudder. And he steps on the right rudder, but not enough.
Uh-huh.
And so it just stops the turn, but we're still in the turn. And I go, you need more right rudder. So finally he pushes really hard on the right rudder, and guess what? The wing comes back up, and he levels the flight. He levels the airplane. And I go, now let's make another 180-degree turn to the right. So he turns the airplane to the right, and now all of a sudden it's kind of like, hey, this airplane will fly without ailerons. And I'm like, exactly. It's something that, the most people don't understand. And today Mike kind of learned that basically the yawing motion is what turns the airplane. The ailerons only roll the airplane. That's really all they do. And, it's a hard concept to learn, but I think once Mike found that today, it was kind of eye-opening.
So the other thing that Mike probably doesn't remember, but happened a couple times was when we were doing pilot and control. I would have control. Two of my launches were aborted, and
that's true.
And at first I was like, "Oh, damn! I did it again." And then I realized after Mike said, "Oh, sorry." What are you sorry about? I hit the stick. You did what? What do you mean? Oh, I was following you with my sticks, and then because I hit my sticks, it gives me control.
You took over control.
I was like, okay. And that happened a couple times. Oh, wait. One time was on your pants.
One time it caught on my cargo shorts.
And one time. But none of those were drastic repair issues.
They just kind of.
No, it's just like, what happened?
Well, I found out, it says right on my radio, instructor has control. And the first time I had the radio down by my side because I was launching the airplane.
Uh-huh.
And I'm holding on to the radio, and I launched the airplane, and right as I went to go bring my radio up into my hand, I hit the aileron stick, and it goes, bring, instructor has control. So luckily, as I got it up into my hands, I was like, I got it, I just circled around and came in. But the second time, I was like, okay, I can't, he said, don't hit your pants with it. So I gave him control, and now I'm actually holding the radio in both hands.
By this time, I'm throwing.
Right. He's already got the launch down, and I'm holding it. And then he throws the thing, and it starts to roll, and I'm like, in my head, I'm like, correct.
Well, actually, you said so. You said so. Do fix the or whatever you said. I can't remember.
I'm like, rudder, whatever, but my fingers are going in the direction. They're sitting on the sticks, right? But they're going in the direction that I want him to correct. And all of a sudden he goes, instructor has control. It's like, oh man, I got it, But and unfortunately, because of the way our boxes work, mine is at idle thrust, right?
Right.
I don't have any.
You could have turned the throttle up when I have control.
Right. I could have, and then given you control, and then yours would have been it. But I just didn't do that. I just left it and gave him control, so it was always at idle because I didn't want it to be at full throttle or whatever. If he's coming to the ground.
That makes sense.
So, because I can fly it without the throttle, it's just a big glider. Right. But anyway, it was a good time today. By the way, and I think Mike learned a lot. We learned a lot. I was really impressed with the airplane because of the abuse it took. There's some paint chips. As Mike said, it looks like he's had it, and it's, you know,
It's a 3-year-old plane, and
it
in
is.
2 days.
In 2 days, it's
2
aged
days.
about 3 years.
He put some more weathering on it.
It's
That's
definitely got
what it
weathering.
is, weathering. And I asked him if he wanted me to shoot the airbrush on it before he left, but he said no. So he said, "No, this will remind him to do
Keep
it."
the rudder in it, dude.
But it flies great.
It does. It really
it's
does.
Well,
fantastic.
You know, and
That's
I
an awesome
thought
story,
3
guys.
cell is going to be a wuss, right? I thought, you know what, this is going to be really boring, and after a few flights, I'm going to want to be flying 4 and 5 cells. And I think some of those guys out there put motors and escapes in there that take a 6 cell.
Right.
You know, just stuff looking on RC groups and stuff. And this thing goes. It goes with 3 cells.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
amazing how much it can go. I don't know. We didn't puff any of his batteries that I know of, but
No.
I imagine if we put a 20C battery in there, it probably would have.
Yeah,
If
maybe.
it was a brand new 20C.
I
It
guarantee
just wouldn't have
though-
gone fast enough. I mean, it would have gone slower.
Right. I guarantee though it would keep up with the Tough Wing.
Oh, I agree with
Good.
that.
Okay,
I
cool.
think it
Very
might
cool.
beat it.
It might beat the Tough Wing.
It's got a bigger prop, so
Yeah.
it makes sense it would.
But
Well, I will keep an eye out for when they go on sale again, because I think you got yours for what, $99
Mm-mm.
what, $29.99?
or 112
$129.
And it's still
$129?
out there at
Yeah.
$129. So
Oh,
go
okay.
get it right
I thought
now.
it was
The
$99,
unpainted version.
but
Maybe you're
okay.
right, Jay. Maybe it was $99, and I paid $30 for shipping.
Oh, maybe so.
Could have been.
Yeah,
That would make
because
sense.
it was because I want to say it was $99, and then maybe it wasn't 30, maybe it was 20. You know, because
Yeah,
I thought
makes
you
sense.
paid like 120 something for the whole thing.
I
120,
think that's the
125
price that
delivered.
it currently is right now.
Yeah, it's at $129.99.
But you could
Yeah,
be
yeah,
right,
yeah.
Jay.
But
I'll
but
look it
I
up.
could have
I'll
sworn
look
it
it
was
up. We can check.
99
I'll look
plus
it up later.
$20 shipping,
Yeah.
something like
Not-
that, and it came
not
out to
important now.
125 delivered.
Right.
So anyway, I'll keep an eye out for the next time they have another sale.
Well, let's see. What else did we do yesterday? Did all that, or that was a lot of that was today. But yesterday we, you got to fly almost everything. We
All
we
your
figured this
planes.
buddy box out. This wireless buddy box was awesome. It was awesome
Nice.
because first of all, for a Spectrum to Spectrum, you just turn it on and go. This
Right.
was a Spectrum to a FR Sky.
Trans.
to
Well, but I had
trans.
a Spectrum module. Don't forget.
Right, but still, it was, we're trying to figure it out, and we were standing in a group this weekend with a bunch of guys, and they're like, yeah, forget it, you'll never figure that out. And Mike did, Mike figured out how to get it all working, and he was able to fly pretty much every airplane, that we took out there.
Huh?
So
Nice.
he loved the L-39.
Yeah, that's awesome. I did dairy turns.
He
Woo-hoo.
did. I
Oh,
taught him how to
good.
do some dairy turns, and he did a really good job at those. That was a little frustrating doing that too, because we were talking language that neither one of us was connecting with. So
Yeah, Mike would say roll, and I
And
would
he would
roll,
roll
but
the
it'd be
other
the wrong way.
direction.
Yeah.
I'd be like, why'd you roll that way? He goes, you said roll. I go, not to the right, to the left. He's like, well, you didn't say to the left. I'm like, no, but you're in a left turn. I want you to roll left to the right turn. He's like, oh. So it took a couple of times, and then finally he landed, and I picked the airplane up and showed him kind of what I wanted to do, and then Spencer actually went out with his flash, which is if you haven't seen it, it's on our Facebook listeners group page, and you can, unfortunately, it's on
You can
our
see the
phone.
dot.
You can see the dot, but actually Spencer was come zipping by, and I was telling him about it, and then finally I yelled over there. I was like, Spencer, do a dairy turn. So we both turned around, and he came ripping through there, and as he's doing 180 miles an hour, and right above the deck, and just rips it into the other direction. So now that Mike actually got to see what it looked like, it made a whole lot more sense.
Right.
Well, it took me some times to try it.
Yeah.
Him to tell me again, try it again, and then it finally started getting a rhythm I could use
Yeah.
that would work because, it really takes, because it's a jet and it's moving along, it really takes you got to have good placement on the runway so you can see the damn thing. Otherwise,
Right.
you can't see it.
Right.
It's too far
Right.
out. And so that's another challenge is just managing the plane too far away or coming in and whatever. And so that was a good time.
Yeah,
I
I
really
kept
enjoyed it.
telling him, I'm like, you need to bring that in a little closer.
I 3D'd the Katana. And
Yep, you did 3D the Katana. You flew the big 106, and
Yeah.
we flew that one a couple times.
That was fun.
yesterday. And then I did a dead stick on the Katana. That was
Yes.
funny. First
Oh,
one
what
out.
happened?
What's that?
Just the
What happened?
engine died.
Just the engine quit.
Just
I think I had it in a low idle setting, and I pulled the power off, and it just died. So I was out there goofing off. Luckily, I wasn't like hovering above
Yeah.
the runway or anything, but I was I was zipping downwind, and I went to go turn in towards the runway, and the engine quit, and I thought, "Ow!" So I dead sticked it in, and then I was talking to Mike, and I took my finger off the tail wheel, and it kind of rolled off the runway and started 4-wheel driving out in the dirt.
And I'm
Mike's
like, what are you doing?
I'm like, oh, well, once I went off, I didn't want to just like turn it really hard to get back on, but I looked away and it kind of rolled off the runway. So he was laughing at me, but then I had to do the walk of shame, go out there and actually drag it back. So, unlike electrics where I can just, recycle it and I've got power and come on back.
Come on
So
back,
so
yeah.
I have a story to tell because this is similar to something that we've heard before.
Is that about the L39?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So
yeah.
I'm getting ready to take off the L39.
Now we're on a buddy box.
We're on Buddy Box, and I got control. He's trusting me to take it off, and the time before that, we were having trouble with occasional rudder nose wheel disconnect.
Yeah.
So nose wheel was
kind of intermittent.
disconnecting. So
Really?
yeah. So I was flying at one time, and it was going down the runway, and of course toward the fence.
Yeah, it just took a complete left turn.
So Mike had to pick up on it and take that one off. But we got it on the runway, and we were okay. Everything's good. We got it back on the runway, another battery, whatever. And so I'm rolling it out. Everything's good. Nose wheel's working, and I'm starting to take off. And Mike goes, abort. No. He
Yeah,
says,
good.
reject.
Reject.
And I'm like, reject? I'm not gonna. I don't have an ejection seat. What am I doing?
Tuesday.
He's like,
You want me to do what?
and so
Spam.
Sorry,
spam.
there's a little bit of professional
which now I know. If he says
vocabulary
reject,
coming
it
in
really means abort. I can do the conversion. It's fine. And he's like, and I'm like, what is going on? What's happening? He goes, dude, the flap control arm is dangling down. Didn't you see it? No, I did not. So I had this flap. So luckily I hadn't rotated.
Nope.
Well, I had rotated up, but
Just barely.
But I hadn't. I was about to turn. I was just about to turn, and he was about to hit flaps up because he had control of the flaps in the gear. I didn't.
Right.
And so he's about to hit flaps up. And he goes, "Nope, just fly it down, fly it down." Then he
Well, I
took,
did hit flaps up because the flaps were down.
whatever. I mean, just saying whatever the flap situation was. I didn't control it. He did. And so then he hit the switch and took control to land it out to the end of the runway. And I was like, what did just happen? He goes, yeah, the arm's down. I was like, really? And so we go, got it. And there it is, hanging down. Guess what? The screw came out.
Just hanging there.
Yeah.
The screw
Did the
came
head
out
come
of
off? Did it come off? The head come off?
Uh-huh.
The,
Yeah.
Same
screw
exact
again?
thing that happened to you. Exactly.
No.
And I was like, that's
way.
just
Yeah,
weird.
yeah.
Yeah.
It was
that's
funny.
just weird.
So, do you have to put some blue Loctite on those, or
Well,
what?
that's what we were thinking, but we don't know.
Yeah, probably. I'm not even really sure why. I mean, I don't fly off of a grass runway, so it's not like it gets bounced around a lot. I'm usually on a paved runway,
Yeah.
but for some reason they're just tiny 1 millimeter screws, I think, or 2 millimeter screws,
One probably.
and it just kind of backed out. So we'll have to
Dude,
send
all
a
I can
note
say
over
for
to motion.
because that's just what happened to me, and I'm just same thing. Mike was like, "Up." He aborted the takeoff, and he just land. He had control, and I'm like, why'd you land? Why didn't you take off? And he's like, oh, don't you see the arm hanging off? And I'm
Yeah.
like,
That's what I'm saying. It's like,
I
Well,
just
we
said
were
plane,
we were
dude. I don't
walking
see-
back. Mike goes, "This sounds vaguely familiar."
yes.
so, was it the left or the
Yeah.
right, Jay? That's what I want to know. Was it the left or the right for your L39?
Good question. I think it was the right.
Okay,
it was
mine was the left.
This
This
was
one
the
was the
left.
left. Yeah,
Okay.
it's crazy, dude. It's just
Well,
crazy.
so when I saw that, and he was just pulling back, so the nose was just coming up.
yeah,
And in my world, an aborted takeoff, basically the verbiage is reject my aircraft, and the captain takes the aircraft from if the first officer's takeoff. So that's exactly what it just filtered out of there, right out of my mouth.
Yeah.
Reject. And I'm like, I got it, or reject my aircraft, and
So
he's
it's-
like, what?
it's a
What?
good thing-
Abort.
See, it's a good thing that AK Mike didn't have the master, because he would have said, hang up. Since he works for AT&T, he would have said, hang up, and you would have been like, what?
That's right.
Hang up!
Yep.
I told you to hang up.
That's funny. But
In my world,
but see,
that's
it's
what
the s-
happens.
That's right. But
No,
see,
Jay, I
once
wouldn't have
again,
said that.
the same exact thing. If you have one flap out and one flap, is not, because the the control horn.
That thing would have rotated.
As soon as you rotate, it would have just
yeah.
rolled really hard into the ground, and
Yeah.
and I saw it, and we rejected it, and so
well, you
the
brought
rest,
the flap. You brought the flaps
I
up, which
hit the
saved
flap
us.
switch so fast because
Yeah.
he was just in the rotation phase, and of course it takes I have mine set for like a 3 seconds.
So it must have fallen off during that rotation. I mean,
It
it must have.
Well, it fell off way before then because I saw it as it went by.
So was it the flap down during that?
Yeah, I put the flaps down.
No,
and,
but I mean, was that flap? It couldn't have been down. It would have just flapped right up into the
no,
wind. Right?
it probably pulled it down, and then as you made a turn or whatever, and then as you started, it put pressure on the flap
It would've
itself,
came up.
and it popped off.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, so we looked at. So the rrest of the time we flew without any flaps, which was kind of hilarious in a
Yeah, so he was basically hunting for a way to crash that thing.
Yes.
Because until we got home later that
Hunting?
night,
What do you
it
mean?
still had the rudder nose wheel issue, and it had the missing flaps. And so I was like, well,
Oh.
it's only going to be one more thing that could have caused this thing to go nose down. Like,
Right.
Oh yeah,
one more thing. But he was like, and then he gives it to Spencer to fly. Now, luckily, he put the control arm back on there. He shoved it on there with his, with just friction.
right.
And so I guess we forgot to tell him or whatever.
We did.
So Spencer goes, hey, I want to fly your L3. And he's like, sure, because he's working on the Katana or whatever. And he's like, sure, no problem. And so Spencer takes it up and he goes, oh, yeah, hey, Spence, no flaps. And Spencer's like, well, I took off with flaps. Well, you're probably not going to be able to land with them. So,
Well, we walked back out there and told him what
Yeah.
happened. He goes, "Oh, so I'll just land without flaps." And I go, "Yeah, it's no big deal." Well, that airplane lands pretty hot without
Yeah, it
flaps.
Sure
but he
does.
did a good job. I mean,
Yeah, he did great.
Was it windy that day, or what was it like?
he had some breeze.
a little bit. but-
One of the things about
yeah, it didn't.
that
It didn't look that bad from the videos off
No.
of our
No,
Facebook
well,
Live.
one of the things
page.
about that particular runway is that on the far right end, there are two things going on. One is it's not really flat. It
No.
kind of has a little bit of a dip, and then it has a downhill thing that goes down probably 3 or 4 feet.
Yeah,
really.
because of the water runoff.
Yeah.
Right.
And so it goes down. Well, because of that, Spencer was coming in nice and low to, because he didn't have any flaps.
Right.
And he gets right at that burble, and that thing just gets sucked to the runway, and it didn't really hit it, but he was able to save it because he pitched up.
Yeah.
But it was like, wow, that would have been good.
I
'Cause
know it would have
He
been.
was right at the end where that thing was burbling. So, it was
And
fun.
so then I flew it later and came in really super hot too because we were flying, and we fly it down to the last 5 seconds of flight time, and then we just haul butt back to the runway. And so anyway, we touched down, and I was just, this thing was moving. I touched down like halfway down the runway, and then I saw that everybody's like, brakes, and I knew that there was no way.
yeah.
I have no brakes on this thing.
No
and so
brakes.
I was about to go off the end of the runway. So I had enough airspeed. I just pulled back on the elevator and did a wheelie off the end of the runway. And so rather than have the
Oh,
nose,
that's right.
drop off
Catch,
the end
right.
and then go in, it basically, the nose wheel came up like it was going to rotate. It hopped off, skipped, bounced, did a little wheelie, and then it came to a stop. And everybody was like, that was so cool. It was pretty fun. We had a good time. So the other thing, you got to fly the A10. What'd you think of that?
I liked it.
Did you?
I was a little nervous about that one because I know that's that you worked hard on that one,
Yeah.
and I didn't really want to crash that. He was, of course, still we were doing buddy boxing, but
Right.
I just didn't. I was really uncomfortable flying it at first, and then I got to fly it like once more. I think after that, maybe twice more. And but after like a couple times, I was like, "Let's do this."
Yeah, he was ready to fly it.
Yeah.
It's fun. It's a
Well,
fun airplane.
you know that AK Mike had an A10 as well, right?
I know, but it didn't
He had a
fare as well as
beautiful
this one, I
A10.
think.
Well, I made my own A10.
I know you did the whole
Yep.
modded it up.
Yep.
And we actually saw pictures.
It
of
was
the-
I would call it the A10 bus.
yes,
Because the fuse part was more like a big box
Right.
than it was, but unfortunately the glue I was using didn't hold well, and those
Right.
stabilizers, that one of them vertical stabilizers came off. The really cool thing about that was that plane came down, not a thing was like broken. It broke the foam,
right.
but like all the parts I had used, like nothing was broken. It
Wow.
came down like a leaf twisting around. I just killed the throttle, and it was just like.
That's cool.
It would have been cool if I would have been able to control one of the motors because I might have actually been able to do something with it,
Right.
like to slow it down more
Yeah,
from spinning so much. But I think the spinning actually
that's
helped
pretty
it,
cool.
not.
So I will tell you that Spencer flew my A10 as well, and actually got a tumble out of my A10.
He tumbled it? I didn't see
tumbled
that.
your
Made me
A10?
a little nervous. I told him to tumble his own A10. But yeah, it was a gentle tumble. I mean, he got it really slow and let it go over its nose, but it actually did it, and I was pretty shocked that he was able to actually get it to.
So would he
go
pitch
over.
up and then let it go over? How did that work?
Yeah, he actually kind of pitched up and started a roll, and then he pushed forward on the stick, and it kind of went over itself. He was almost in the vertical, and then it just kind of went over on its own. Kind of went over the tail.
Right.
So it was losing its energy anyway. But I told him, I was like, whoa, let's not destroy my airplane. I put a lot of work into that thing. He got a brand new one sitting over there I got my eye on. Yours is going to be a box of foam, but he did a good job. And now, if you haven't seen it, we were able to fly together. Once again, Mike was nice enough to put something
I did see it, and it was very cool. Although you guys kind of tricked me because I thought you were going to saw the formation take off, and then you guys, I heard the buzzers, bing, bing, bing. 2.5 minutes later said, okay, it's time to land. You guys set up and we're in formation. I thought, they're going to do a formation landing.
Yeah, we were.
They got enough. They have enough spacing, and then somebody was like way off the runway. I was like, who is that, and why are they over there?
It was
so
me.
what? Okay, so what happened?
Well, because basically we were coming in, and it's really strange when you're doing close formation like that on RC airplanes, because I actually literally have to push out to get lined up. Like, I can't cut in short and get lined up because I'm at a.
Right.
I don't know if that makes
especially if you're
angle,
lagging, you try to cut.
Correct. I close the angle difference, and so I actually have to fly out, and it looks like I'm pushing. Spencer, said I'll take the inside,
which is closest
to us, and so I'm having to push him further out to get lined up on my side, and I pushed a little far out, and he goes, "Make sure you stay." He goes, "You need to be further on your side of the runway." So I pushed a little rudder in there and ruddered myself over. Only from where I was, I ruddered it right off the runway, and I wasn't going to. So I could have ruddered back to it, but
he was already down.
He was already touching down, and I was like, "Criminy!" I pushed a little too far out, is what I did. So anyway, yeah, I just basically hit the throttle. I did a really low pass, and just broke off and came around, landed behind him. So, but we've done them before. Just this particular time, I think it was a pretty good crosswind at that point too. So I think that was just me. I right at the last second, I didn't want to just make it. He was filming, so I didn't want to make it like, holy crap, he just ran into Spencer. I'd already tried that twice, right?
I don't know if you could hear it, but I think Spencer said something. You got to stay on your side of the runway or something like that.
Well, because we did a low flyby in formation, and I got too close to him. I mean, I got really close.
Yeah,
to
you
him.
did.
And he's like, "Hey, get away! Get away from me!"
He said, "I had to avoid you 2 times."
Yeah, that's what he said. So, but I pushed out again, and we came down, and I was trying to get underneath the wing, and he was coming down, and I was coming down, and then I kind of slid over. And I think because of the crosswind, the wind was kind of blowing in our face, and so it kind of was blowing me towards, and I wasn't using quite the rudder I should have been to kind of line up with him, but. We came by, and it's on the video. You can barely see it because we came by right almost over our heads, and Mike was trying to catch us both in there.
Yeah,
but
it was hard.
We were pretty close together, close enough that Spencer was like, "Get away from me."
Well, speaking of like a video or anything, did you have any video on any of the planes?
What do you mean?
No. As a matter of fact, when we were talking to you last time on the phone, I had it in my hand sitting in the living room, and I set it on the coffee table. And then we went and did our thing, and that camera sat on the coffee table all weekend. So
beautiful.
Every time we got out there, I'd be like, "Where did I put that camera?" And I'd be looking around. I'm like, "I thought I put it in my bag." And when we got home today, or yesterday, actually, right? I mean, it was sitting there next to where we were talking. Mike and I were sitting on the couch
where the batteries were.
Yeah. So anyway, no, we didn't get that any video on the airplanes, but we were busy beavers, man. We flew a lot.
Well, good for you. Well, it looks like you said, even though our viewers can't see us, it looks like you guys have been outside all week long.
No question.
We
No
hit
doubt
the
about it.
Sun Valley. Well, we actually hit the field at just a little past 8, and I think we made it home just a little past
1? Because we went to
yesterday.
Oh, yesterday. Oh, yeah. Geez, that was like 6
yeah,
or
6
something.
o'clock. Yeah, so we were out there
Wow.
from 8 to 6. Both of us were dead. We, it's stupid. We took a glass of water for 6 hours.
My mom would be upset.
Oh, your mom would be terribly upset. So this time we froze a couple of gallons of water and took them out with us. But we were like parched yesterday. We were like, oh man, if I only had some water.
We started stealing
Ice out of
Spencer's chest. Yeah, it was good.
It was fun, but unfortunately, we're down to the last day. I mean, Mike leaves tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm sad.
So, but I think he accomplished a lot, which is good. He got to fly the Funracer, got to help paint it, learn a little bit about airbrushing. This was a good opportunity, because unlike the last time he was here was for the Electric Festival, and that was spent mostly just podcasting and doing Electric Festival festivities stuff over there, flying and meeting everybody and kind of hanging out. But
and oogling the Funracer.
And oogling the Funracer, yeah. So this was good that he got to learn a couple new skills, and I think honestly he said that he's taking back a few things that he and I talked about as far as flying and aerodynamics and
taking back to, you mean Dallas? Is that what you said?
Yeah, taking back to Dallas. So because I forget sometimes too that my professional background's in aviation. I was an instructor in aviation, aviation instructor, RC instructor. I've done a lot of RC stuff. Skill level wise, I forget when I've known them for 5 years and they're like, oh, we fly all the time. Yeah, but they don't fly every day,
Right.
Right. Or they don't probably fly at my time frame or my level, kind of thing. And I forget sometimes that I'm like, what are you doing? And he's like, Mike, this is what I know. I don't know anything other than this. And then I was like, oh,
hang up.
I know, right? So it is difficult, because in the RC world, everybody has, different levels and different skill levels. And I obviously look up to some of the guys I fly with. They do really, really well. And, I thought it was really kind of cool that Mike learned how to do a dairy turn.
Yeah, I was really jazzed.
And he was pretty cool. I know Philip has asked us a couple of times, what that is. And we've had a couple of requests on our Facebook page. And it's really tough to get a good sense of how fast this thing actually works until you actually see it happen.
Right.
Well,
AK Mike,
there is a little bit of
it works very well on the tough wing.
What?
To do a dairy turn on the tough wing.
It would work well on a tough wing?
It works very well.
Oh, you did it on a tough wing.
Well,
yeah.
I showed him when I was up there last time I was flying this stuff.
Yeah, so we were practicing. That's how I was practicing.
I can see that. I seem to do that on the tough wing anyway because I'm just flying all over the place. Like I don't know what I'm doing.
But now you know what
that was a dairy turn.
You know what it's called.
It wasn't on purpose, but I did it right there.
Oh my gosh! Well, looking at the clock, guys. Once again,
I know.
Looks like our hour's up.
Wow!
It goes by so fast.
Just like your week is up. So I hope you know.
I didn't want to hear that.
I know I didn't either.
Well, you can actually go back and get some rest. It looks like you guys worked it hard this week. I mean, you worked.
Yeah, I'm tired from
hard
vacation.
on your recreation and
I
vacation.
need some work.
He needs to go to work to relax.
Yeah.
Well, no. Usually, when like you said, we come down for the electric festival, or we go over to each other's houses. There's always some other project or something else going on, and I would say like this is the first time like you two were hardcore RCing the whole week. You didn't have to repair a truck or a van or a trailer or put together half the airplanes or whatever. You just flew. That's awesome.
I think the other thing is that I got out of this, Mike, was we worked on some of your stuff.
Yeah, I have to give kudos to Mike. He did help me put the nose wheel steering into my turbine jet, and he did help me get the wheel off and lube up the brakes. So.
And what I was going to say about that is, working by yourself is one thing,
right?
Because you know what you know and whatever, but having somebody there going, well, like to get that wheel off, I was like, well, don't you have a brake puller? He's like, no, I don't really do. I got this one. Here's another one. Hey, look at this. Will this work? And sure enough, he's got this brake
I had
puller,
a wheel puller.
yeah, or whatever it was. Yeah, and we used that and we pulled that thing off. Yeah. And so just, I think that bouncing back and forth really changes how you progress in a situation. I do programming sometimes at work, and I know for me, having another guy to talk to makes a huge amount of difference.
Right.
Just from a standpoint of, I'm going to approach it like this. And there's like, why would you spend all that time doing it that way?
Right.
You could just do this.
Right.
Thank you. I'll be done in 5 minutes now. Instead of 6 hours to do whatever I was going to do. I think that happens at building too.
Yeah, there is something to say about sharing ideas. And we actually, while Mike was here, had the opportunity to go run over to Spencer's. And while we were there, Barry was there working on his airplane stuff. Dan showed up, who's another guy out of our field, to do some work for him. He was doing a clunk line replacement, and Barry was doing something.
Oh, he was making missile.
Oh, he was making missile mounts for his F-15.
That was cool, actually.
I was putting the wings back into my Katana, the new wing modification I did for that. Mike was working on the Funracer, and Spencer was working on his L-39. So we had literally 5 projects going in the same room. His wife walked in and started laughing. She's like, "What is this, a sweatshop for RC repair?"
Who making the soccer balls? That's what she said.
Who's making the soccer balls? But it was kind of nice because Dan came and helped me, and I was over there talking to him, and Barry was showing us what he was doing, and it was just a good exchange of ideas. So it definitely worked.
It was funny because I really think if Jay was in the room, when I asked that question, I asked Mike when I was trying to figure out what was going on with the stabilizer. I said, "What setting would cause the aileron and the elevator to move at the same time?" And Mike was just like thinking airplanes.
Right.
Like never that would happen, never. And I don't know what it came upon me. I think we came back and that's we discovered it. Yeah. But then I was like, it's elevons, because you'd use elevons. It's aileron and elevator.
Right.
They're tied together. And that was what I was trying to figure out that whole time. And I asked everybody in the room, and nobody really had a sense of that because, they don't fly Elevon planes that much, really. Most of those guys are
3D guys,
3D
jet guys.
Yeah. So anyway, I just thought that was like I said, having people in the room can help, but sometimes you just got to figure it out.
Yeah, that's true. Sometimes. But I think if we would all kind of sat down and discussed it probably would have been a little better. But we were all in our own little world doing our own thing when Mike asked the question. And we're like, I don't know. Don't ask me.
That's a stupid question.
Yeah, well, how should I know? That should never happen.
Exactly.
Actually, it does in Elevon mode. So. But it's been a really fun time. And I, once again, I appreciate Mike and the help that he gave me on my stuff. And I know he appreciates
all the painting
painting that I did. He's been talking about it since we did.
Right up until he crashed the plane.
No, I still appreciate the painting you did.
Yeah,
even though I crashed it.
There you go. I appreciate it this much.
Well, wait a minute now. You're saying I did it on purpose?
I don't know.
I see. That's what you think of me, Jay. Fine.
That's how weather.
I'm making air quotes. My controls were reversed, air quotes.
Yeah, the ultimate in passive aggressive.
That's right.
Passive aggressive.
All I know is that I'm glad it wasn't in my radio.
Yeah, so, right. You never would.
I don't want to be responsible.
What's really funny is the guys at the park were really giving him a ration because it's like he's PIC because he's the master. Yeah, so right. Technically it was my fault, but I know it was me because I check all that stuff all the time. That was on me to make sure it happened. And it's my responsibility to make sure that those surfaces are working.
But it was okay. The guys at the park that took their opportunity to throw darts at me.
Yeah, they did.
It's got to be.
They don't get many opportunities.
No, they don't.
That's right. Well, 6 feet from you, if you land your plane 6 feet from you, man, they're like all over you. Oh, you got to walk a foot. Oh, you suck. I love that.
The walk of shame.
It's just a foot. I don't think it's going to kill him. Yeah, but it's usually much closer.
I just have to
He's
take
slipping.
like 3 steps.
He's slipping.
Any more than 3 steps, I'm in trouble.
Yeah, that's it. Well, buddy, wow, once again, like I said, the hour's up. Yeah. So the wife's going to be happy because the house will be empty-ish.
Yep.
Although
again?
you guys haven't been home to be messing it up and getting in her hair.
No,
so,
really.
we've been. That's not necessarily true. We do have RC parts strung everywhere.
Oh, well, that's like that always. So I'm sure she's used to that, but at least she gets her spare bedroom back for a little bit, and
Yeah, that's
you
true.
can return back to normal.
Yep, this is true. Well, I think this episode has been brought to you by Duncan's RC. We're going to give them a shout out and a plug.
If you need a prop,
That's
call
right.
Duncan.
If you need a
Go to
prop,
Duncan's RC.
those are the guys that'll get it. If you're in the Phoenix area, swing by and talk to the guys out there at Duncan's. They'll help you out with all your RC parts. They sell cars, airplanes, helicopters. They even have some really cool models, and they've always been really good to us. So stop by in there. Tell them you heard us on the Park Flyer podcast if you're in the Phoenix area, and we'll see if they can't find what you need. Other than that, what do we got coming up? Anything?
Another podcast.
Jump on our RC Groups listeners page and give us a comment on Mike's fundraiser. I think the last episode we wanted you to do that. So if you haven't joined, I think we're going to try to run a contest here sometime soon. Maybe that'll help out. And I think we got some other things in the work for this summer. So it should be a good should be a good summer. Summer's here, and it's going to be hot in my neck of the woods, but we'll figure it out. Maybe we can talk to a couple of people that went to Joe Nall this weekend.
Oh, that's a great idea.
See what happened out there. So. Jay, you doing any flying this week? You got to mow your field still?
I still got to mow, bud. And Mike picked a good week to leave Texas because it's just been raining
Except
every day.
except
Hot,
for
rainy.
the recent days of it. Other than that.
So you picked a good time to go to Arizona. Although you did catch, the monsoons and
Nope, it's been
That kind of
90
stuff.
degrees here.
Yeah, it just was. That was a 2-minute thing.
Yeah.
It just,
2-minute
it
thing.
just
And it was
ripped
over.
through. Yeah, it ripped through.
Yeah, it was just, matter of fact, we could have gone back, 10 minutes later,
Yep.
and it would have been fine.
Yep.
No wind,
Right.
cleared, so.
Yep. I
So,
didn't even make it out to Superstition.
Nope, sure did.
So hopefully
Kinda
I'll
was
maybe get some flying in. I got to give some folks a call and maybe run out to the field and see how bad it is. So
Take a drive out, see what it says, let us know.
that I will.
All right, from Arizona, I'm Michael.
Jay from the hills of Texas.
And AK Mike in Texas and Arizona.
I'm leaving Arizona.
Yeah, leaving Arizona. Isn't that a movie?
Bye-bye.
I know,
Yeah.
right? Well, we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Let's fly.
You have been listening to the Park Flyer Podcast. Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to your next visit. Please give our show a star rating and review, and feel free to email us your questions, topics, or suggestions to parkflyerpodcast@gmail.com.